Hokkaido is a very powerfully spiritual, slightly wild, magnetic place.
Hey, umbrella time. Thank you. Great. It's a place, particularly in the winter, where the clutter and distraction of life seems to fade away. When the snow comes and everything is nicely covered in white or grey. Sounds go away. You can just hear the snowfall and your own heartbeat and breathing and very little else. It's a very quiet, meditational, calm place for me. Even in the midst of a storm, it's a wonderful place to come to ground, in a sense, after being in the usual hurly-burly life that we all lead. It's like one vast white canvas with calligraphy, black brushstrokes marked on this very, very beautiful abstract area. It's a very, very expansive place. And it's a place that I find that I can breathe, and I can think, and I can float in my imagination. One of the essential elements of Hokkaido, and in fact Japan in general, is that it is an island, a very intimate island or islands that have been changed and lived on and with over the centuries. There is nowhere seemingly that I've found in Hokkaido that is so wild that it doesn't have that element of people having been there. And I believe an essential ingredient of my work is the feeling of memories and stories and atmospheres that reside in the landscape. So I again look for particular environments that have been changed somehow, that have the influence or impact on the earth. In a sense, I impose the way that I see, the way that I feel, the way that I connect on the landscape here. So I look for certain things. And another photographer, of course, would produce an entirely different body of work, I would hope. This place can be extremely wild, particularly up in the mountains. And my vision, I think, is more of a domesticated landscape, in a sense. It's more of an intimate landscape. I look for single trees that have certain characters. I look for fence posts that have certain graphic elements to them. That sometimes it's the snow barriers look like musical notes for me and scales. And I always have this vague theory that there's a certain language in the landscape that I certainly don't understand. I don't suppose anybody else does. But I love to wander around playing with these marks on the landscape. It's rather nice when it becomes very abstract, more and more simple as I worked through it. I started with hundreds of them, and it got down to about 3 at the end. Time for tea.
Ready?
Okay.
There are so many ways you can photograph the same subject matter, and I often spend an hour or two just with one tree. Not because I'm taking the same photograph over and over, but because I'm experimenting with different angles, with different compositions, with different lenses, and with different speeds. So particularly in snowstorms, one can photograph with very fast speeds and have that kind of staccato effect, or you can actually see the snow as little dots all over the photograph, which is very, very nice. Or one can go the other way and make very long exposures, and the snow becomes like a veil, like a mist. And I tend in general to go that direction, to make the exposures longer rather than shorter. I often do this with water, of course, too, with almost anything that moves. So it creates something which the eye doesn't actually see, which I rather like. I like the feeling that photography can be somewhat unpredictable, that we don't really have full control of what's going on, and that even during the exposure things happen that we don't really know about. And it becomes a sense of discovery, like opening a Christmas present when you actually get the processed film back.
Yeah, there it is. Hold on. Yeah. We can talk to it. Okay. I'm going to circle. I'm not going to go too close. I'll say hello soon, but not yet. Pardon? The lake is not frozen. Beautiful, beautiful.
There is one particular tree on the lake of Kushiro, which I first stumbled on in the winter of, in January 2002, I believe. So I've probably visited it, I don't know, a dozen times since then, at different times that I've been around Kushiro. When I first photographed it, It almost had the feeling of being a bonsai tree. Very stark, very scaleless, very beautifully Japanese in its way. And each time I would return, one of the limbs fell off the tree, or it changed completely. And now it's almost a kind of a stooping, old lady figure somehow that kind of stretches out over the lake. I do feel that I'm photographing as a portrait photographer when I talk to the trees and I photograph the trees. I like to think that I'm not a paparazzi, that I run in, snap a picture, and run back out again. I don't think that's fair. I wouldn't do it with a human, so I don't see why I should do it with the landscape. With trees, as with humans, the more time you meet them and become familiar with them, the friendlier they are. And the more you know about them, the more subtle and deep the relationship becomes. She hasn't changed too much, which is very, very nice. I don't see any limbs have disappeared, and curiously the same as 2 years ago, which is great. It's a very sweet tree. It really is. Very beautiful today too. And the lighting was absolutely gorgeous. Very, very fortunate. Because it started out, I was thinking, first of all, we got up too late. Secondly, the sun was coming up and there was no clouds in the sky. And then it's one of those wonderful occasions when the mist just enveloped the whole place and the background became very subdued, quite veiled. And the tree was quite majestic, as it should be, as she deserves to be. Yeah, so it's a wonderful morning. Wonderful. Yeah. I'm an old dog and I don't like to change my tricks very much, particularly since the digital revolution. I'm fully conscious that much of what I do could be done very quickly with a computer. I look for certain elements in the landscape, certain degrees of simplicity that I could make in the computer quite easily and very quickly. But I find that the process of coming to Hokkaido and the days or weeks I spent here is extremely therapeutic. I love to just wander out and in a sense go hunting for that elusive photograph. And there is a degree of imperfectness which I always look for, and I can make it perfect again with a computer very easily. But I look for elements that just come together at a certain time that I can't really duplicate. Very, very nice. Okay. 9, 7. The job of a photographer is not to produce decoration for other people's walls and homes. It's a real voyage of discovery, and I think it's an authentic way to go through life. It's a way of discovering things, finding things, experiencing things. And to be in the middle of an amazing snowstorm and to be waiting, for the sun to come out from behind those clouds and just produce this ray of light is quite remarkable. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but the fact that you can wander off for 2 or 3 hours in snowshoes and the weather changes and the snow comes down, the light comes out, and you're finding things or you're not finding things. It's all part of the process. It's just a wonderful way, in a sense, to go through life, as opposed to just trying to produce and create photographs. It's not completely about that. Getting hard going.いい天気です. It's great.